His lawyer leaned in and whispered 5 words. Just 5. And Vincent's face, his smug, self-satisfied face I'd stared at across breakfast tables for 15 years, went completely white. His hands started trembling. The papers he'd been so eager to sign shook like leaves in a storm. And me? For the first time in 3 years, I smiled. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You need the beginning, because this didn't start in a courtroom. It started years earlier, inside a marriage where I slowly became furniture. My name is Alexis Dunst. I'm 34 years old, and until 3 months ago, I was married to Vincent Mercer. 15 years, long enough to build a life, a business, a routine, and long enough for a man to start believing you'll accept anything as normal if he repeats it long enough. I met Vincent when I was 17. I graduated high school early, not because I was some genius, but because I was practical, restless, and desperate to get out of my parents' house. I took a job at Henderson and Price law firm as a file clerk. Minimum wage, maximum paper cuts. But it was mine. By 18, I'd worked my way up to legal assistant. I was good with details, good with numbers, good with keeping my mouth shut and my eyes open. In that office, I learned something most people never learn until it's too late. Paper tells the truth. People don't. Vincent was 24 when we met at a client event. Charming, ambitious, the kind of man who talked about the future like it was already his, like success was just standing there waiting to be claimed. He said he was going to build a real estate empire. I said I could help him file the paperwork. That was our love story in one sentence. We got married when I was 19. Tyler came along when I was 20. I kept working at the law firm part-time while raising our son, building my retirement, saving whatever I could. My grandmother always said a woman should have her own money. Not secret money, she'd always clarify, just her own. Something nobody could take. When I was 23, Vincent's business finally took off. He asked me to quit the law firm and work with him full-time. He needed someone to manage the books, handle clients, coordinate contractors, someone he could trust completely. So I became his unpaid everything. Bookkeeper, office manager, client liaison, interior decorator for model homes, marketing coordinator, event planner. I did it all while raising Tyler, managing the household, and keeping Vincent's life so organized he barely had to think. My official title was wife. My actual title was the engine. For 11 years, I poured myself into building Vincent's dream. And for 11 years, he collected the credit like it was sunlight. At every industry event, I was Vincent's wife. At every celebration, he thanked his team, his mentors, his vision. He never quite got around to thanking me. And then the shift happened, the one women always notice first. He started making decisions without me. He started staying late more often. He started criticizing little things, the way I dressed, the meals I cooked, my lack of ambition. Ambition. From the woman running his entire back office for free while raising his son and keeping his life stitched together? Then, 3 months ago, he dropped the bomb on a Tuesday evening. I was making dinner, his favorite, because apparently I'm a glutton for unappreciated effort. He sat me down at the kitchen table with this expression that wasn't sad or apologetic, just businesslike. He wants a divorce, he said. And then, like he was reading off a menu, he added, I want the house, the tars, the business, everything. You can keep Tyler. Keep Tyler. Like our 15-year-old son was a leftover pizza he didn't feel like carrying. Like Tyler was an inconvenience he was generously leaving behind. I just stared at him. 15 years of marriage ending at our kitchen table between the salt shaker and the butter dish, like I was just another item he was discarding. What I didn't know in that moment, what I wouldn't fully understand until later, was that Vincent had been planning this for months. He already had a lawyer, Harold Whitfield, expensive, experienced, the kind of attorney you hire when you don't want fairness, you want victory. While I was scheduling his dentist appointments and making grocery lists, he was building his exit strategy. The next day, his mother showed up. Lorraine Mercer, a woman who had treated me like the help for 15 years, arrived with perfectly styled hair and perfectly practiced sympathy. She patted my hand and told me I should have tried harder to keep him happy. "Men have needs, dear," she said, like she was explaining something complicated to a slow child. That first week was a blur. Vincent moved me to the guest room like I was already a guest in my own life. Documents started appearing, settlement proposals, timelines. Everything moved fast, like he wanted to bulldoze me before I could stand up. And everyone saw what Vincent wanted them to see. A woman whose world had collapsed, a wife being thrown away after 15 years, a victim who didn't see it coming. But here's the thing. Vincent didn't know I'd already found something 3 years ago, something buried in his financial records, something he thought was hidden forever, and I'd been quietly preparing ever since. Within 2 weeks, he started bringing her around. Brittany Sawyer, 27, worked at his company. Of course she did. She had that Instagram perfect look, expensive nails, hair always done, yoga pants that probably cost more than my weekly groceries. She walked into my kitchen like she owned it, wore my apron, my grandmother's apron, while making smoothies in my blender. She sat on my couch, ate off my plates, laughed in my living room like I wasn't even there. Vincent paraded her around like a trophy. He put his arm around me in front of me, casual and cruel, like I was furniture that came with the house. Then the humiliation escalated. First, he canceled my personal credit card. "We need to separate finances," he said, like he was being reasonable. Then the joint card. Then he suggested I should probably find somewhere else to stay while we sort things out. My own home, and I was being asked to leave it? Lorraine came over to help me pack, and by help, I mean she went through my belongings and decided what I deserved to keep. Old clothes? Fine. Some photos? Maybe. My grandmother's recipe box? She hesitated on that one like she was considering claiming it. Anything valuable, anything I'd picked out, anything he'd ever bought me, Lorraine declared it all marital assets Vincent was entitled to. She packed my life into garbage bags. Not boxes, garbage bags, like I was trash being taken out. Through all of this, I had one person I thought I could trust, Diane Wallowy, my best friend since high school, 20 years of friendship. She was the first person I called after Vincent announced the divorce. She was so supportive, checking in, listening, bringing wine, telling me I deserved better. But something felt off. Little things. Vincent seemed to know my plans before I made them. If I told Diane I was thinking about fighting for the house, Tyler would come home the next day saying his dad told him it wouldn't work. If I mentioned looking at apartments in a certain neighborhood, Vincent would casually remark how I couldn't afford that area. And then it clicked. I should have seen it years ago. The way Diane lit up when Vincent walked in a room, the way she laughed at his jokes too hard, complimented him too much, asked about him first. My best friend wasn't my friend. She was his spy. And while Vincent and Diane played their little games, the worst part wasn't them. It was Tyler. My son saw everything, the girlfriend in our home, the grandmother packing my mother's life into garbage bags, the way his father looked at me like I was nothing. And Vincent worked on him, slowly, dripping poison in his ear. "Your mom is making this difficult. I just want everyone to be happy. She's the one dragging this out. I'm trying to be fair." Tyler started pulling away from me. Not angry, just distant, confused, like he didn't know who to believe, because his father was very, very convincing. I could lose the house. I could lose the money. I could lose everything I'd spent 15 years building. But watching my son look at me like I was the problem, that was the knife. That was the wound that actually bled. So I hired a lawyer. Nina Castellano, 52. Sharp as a razor, no tolerance for nonsense. She reviewed my situation and told me what any good lawyer would say. "You helped build this business. You're entitled to half of everything. The house, the company, the accounts. We fight." I stared at her for a long moment, and then I said very calmly, What if I don't want to fight? She looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Everyone did. Everyone thought I was broken. Everyone thought I was giving up. They had no idea. Because 3 years ago, I found the truth in Vincent's books, and I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't confront him. I prepared. And now, all I had to do was let Vincent believe he was winning. He took everything and finally learned what that meant. 3 years earlier, long before Vincent ever asked for a divorce, I was sitting alone at the kitchen table at 2 in the morning, surrounded by spreadsheets and bank statements. Vincent was working late. He always was by then. I was doing what I always did, cleaning up the mess, reconciling accounts, making sure numbers lined up, making sure the empire looked solid from the outside. That's when I saw it. A transfer I didn't recognize, then another, then a pattern. I followed the money the way I'd been trained to do years ago at the law firm, quietly, methodically, page by page, line by line. By 3 a.m., my hands were cold and my stomach felt hollow. The house had 3 mortgages, not 1, not 2, 3. The first one, the original loan, was almost paid off. That was the one Vincent bragged about at dinner parties. What he didn't mention were the second and third mortgages taken out years later, quietly, without discussion. Total owed on the house, $1.1 million. Actual market value, $850,000. We were underwater by $250,000 on a house I thought we nearly owned outright. The business was worse. Maxed out lines of credit, back taxes unpaid, vendors waiting on money, equipment financed into oblivion, nearly $500,000 in business debt alone. Even the cars weren't real, all leased, balloon payments coming due. We didn't own them, we were renting the illusion of success. By sunrise, I had the full picture. Total debt, close to $1.9 million. Total real asset value, maybe $1.6 million if everything sold perfectly. And the missing money? Crypto investments, lost. Gambling, gone. A second apartment I didn't know existed. A woman I didn't know existed. Luxury watches, designer suits, trips I was never invited on. Vincent wasn't building an empire, he was burning borrowed money and calling it ambition. I sat there in the quiet kitchen, papers spread around me, and realized something important. If I confronted him, he'd lie. If I accused him, he'd gaslight me. If he knew I knew, he'd find a way to take what little was truly mine. So I did nothing, outwardly. Instead, I protected myself. My retirement account, built before the business, was rolled into a separate account and left untouched. My grandmother's inheritance, $340,000, stayed in its own account, never mixed with marital funds, never used for household expenses. Then I took the final step. With help from my uncle, a retired accountant, I created an irrevocable trust for Tyler. My retirement, my inheritance, everything that was legally mine, gone from Vincent's reach forever. Then I documented everything. Every mortgage, every loan, every hidden account, every suspicious transaction, copies at my sister's house, copies in a safe deposit box, encrypted backups, redundancy upon redundancy. And then I waited, because men like Vincent always leave. They don't fix things, they don't confess, they trade wives the way they trade cars. So when he finally asked for a divorce, when he demanded the house, the business, the cars, everything, I almost laughed. He wasn't asking for assets, he was demanding debt. Back in the present, I slid 3 binders across Nina Castellano's desk. She read in silence for nearly an hour. When she finally looked up, the pity in her eyes was gone, replaced by something sharper. "You've known about this for 3 years," she said. I was waiting for him to leave. I knew he would. She leaned back slowly, then smiled, a dangerous, appreciative smile. "So, if you sign over the assets, he gets every mortgage, every loan, every liability." "Yes. And your inheritance and retirement? Protected, separate, already gone." Nina exhaled softly. I owe you an apology. I thought you were giving up. Everyone does. That's the point. From that moment on, the plan was simple. I played the role everyone expected: broken, exhausted, defeated. At mediation, I spoke softly. I asked for very little, just enough to start over. $50,000, shared custody, my personal belongings. Vincent agreed instantly. He looked at me with something close to pity, as if I were a wounded animal lucky to escape with scraps. His arrogance grew by the day. He told people I didn't even fight. His mother bragged I didn't get a dime. He refused a financial audit when his own lawyer suggested it, signed a waiver without reading it. Impatience is expensive. The final hearing was quick, clean, clinical. Vincent signed eagerly. I signed carefully. Then his lawyer reached the liability disclosure. That's when the whisper happened. 5 words. You're assuming all the debt. Vincent finally read what he'd signed. The color drained from his face as the numbers hit him all at once. House, underwater. Business, drowning. Vehicles, liabilities. Total net value, negative. He stood up, shouting fraud, accusations, panic. The judge shut him down. These are your debts, Mr. Mercer. You were advised. You declined review. The agreement stands. He turned to me, voice breaking. You knew. I was your bookkeeper for 11 years. I knew everything. The gavel came down. Marriage dissolved, assets awarded, liabilities included. I stood, smoothed my dress, picked up my purse. You said you wanted everything, I told him quietly. I gave you exactly what you asked for. I walked out without looking back. The collapse was fast. The girlfriend disappeared within weeks. The house couldn't sell. The business defaulted. Bankruptcy lawyers replaced realtors. Vincent showed up at my apartment months later, thinner, desperate, broken, asking if we could talk. I closed the door. That night, my son hugged me and said, I get it now. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt something better than revenge. I felt free. Because the best kind of revenge isn't loud, it's patient, it waits, and it lets someone destroy themselves while thinking they've won.